What's up, folks, and welcome to the morning session. This is your boy Kladsman. In this session, I'll talk about mastering and why mastering is important for your audio production, and to just bring out the final touch, or give it like the final touch to your work. Now, a lot of guys ask me what's the difference between mastering and mixing of certain tracks. Now, what I can say is that there's a bit of a difference there. Mixing is just bringing together the different sounds and putting them together in a mix. But mastering is taking this piece of work and giving it that extra dynamics that the sound might have, so that it can actually survive the digital industry and also survive all the other areas that the sound is going to be used, because it will maintain its quality, it will maintain its presence, it will maintain its feel. Now, to give you an example of what mastering looks like in day-to-day life, it's like if you have a piece of furniture and you've completed the work. Now, what's remaining probably is giving it a bit of polish. You'll have probably to use the sandpaper, polish the surface, and then apply varnish to it, give it that final shiny look. So that's what mastering is. Mastering is to give that piece of work that extra final look or final feel. But this time it's like you're looking at sound by itself. Now, at times you'll find that during mastering there's some sounds that can be absorbed, and some sounds might stay vibrant on top. So there's a way I normally play around with, especially the vocals. So the vocals, during mixing, I ensure that the vocals are slightly above the instrumentals, right? And then also with the instrumentals, I ensure that the instruments that I want to appear on to be felt on the left side, that is on the spread, so that on the left side and then on the right side. So when you're panning the instruments, you pan them when you're actually creating the beat itself, so that during mastering, now you bring out this flavor of sounds, the left, the right pan, and also the vocals sitting there. Now, when you go back to the explanation I've told you about the varnish that you're going to apply on the surface of the furniture, some of it's going to be absorbed. Okay, so sometimes you might want to do a second application, a third application, and stuff like that, just to keep the brilliance up, and the varnish, the shine up for the furniture. So that's why sometimes you might need to put the vocals slightly above the instrumentals before you start the mastering, so that they don't get absorbed by the lows of the instrument, like the kick, the bass, and all the low instruments and stuff like that. Then again, also you might want to kill a bit of the bass slightly, depending on the sound signature that you're working on, depending on the vocal perspective that you're working on. If the vocal is going to lose its quality by you reducing its bass, then you don't have to reduce the bass so much, all right? And some artists, they identify their vocals having they have a bass on their vocals. Some artists are keen on the highs, so it depends on whether you're totally going to mess up this artist's work in terms of their vocal pronunciation. But the thing is, the only reason I do kill a bit of the bass on the vocals is because of the instruments. If the instrument have the high lows, the lows are kind of like the bass, and the drums, the kicks are quite high. sometimes I have to play with that. Now there are things that you need to consider before you actually start looking at mastering by itself. Number one is the mixing, but you first of all start by recording. Normally say like garbage in, garbage out. The vocals need to be recorded as if this is the final piece. They are supposed to like sound the way you'd want it to sound. Alright, so the capturing of the vocals is quite key. The vocals need to be captured in a way as if you're listening to the final work, and it has to go through perfection. You just have to do it and do it and do it and do it over again. That's why you have several takes for the vocals. Now the instrumentals also need to be balanced as if this is the final piece of work. Okay, like you have your snares, you have your kicks, you have your hi-hats, you have your bass line, you have your guitar, whatever. So what you have is like everything needs to sound balanced, whereby there's no one particular instrument that's actually overwhelming the other instruments. It has to sound perfect. So it has to sound brilliant, the way you'd want it to sound in your final piece of work. All right. Then you'll have to mix down this work and export it from your software that you're using for recording. But you can mix down the vocals first. This is the best way to do it. Mix down the vocals and export the vocals separately. Then re-export the instrumental separately. Of course, you can export them as WAV because they work with WAV a lot. If you export it as MP3, make sure it's one of the highest MP3s. I think it's 320 kbps. So make sure that it has the best quality that you can actually get out of your mixing. After that, put the vocal and the beats back to your mixing channel, and then work on just the levels. Okay, ensure that you're able to hear the vocals clearly, even on top of the instrumental. Then now you can export the whole mix as it is. All right, so once you've done that, then you can use the same software if it offers you the mastering kit, or you can get mastering software. For example, you can have the Magix one, which is the Audio Clean Lab, which I actually use most of the time. It actually captures the mastering quite well because you focus on the three main aspects of mastering. The biggest one actually being the 3-band compressor. The 3-band compressor works with the highs, the mids, and the lows, and I use that to give the track or the piece a bit of energy. All right, and then the dynamics, because what it does is that it kind of like amalgamates all this, the highs, the mids, and the lows, and it makes all the sounds audible. All right, now there's some sounds that you can actually hear them when you're using your headphones. There's some sounds that you'll hear, you'll notice them when you're in a surround system, surround speaker system, and then some of them, you'll notice them on the monitoring speaker when you're doing the mastering. Now also, when you're doing the mastering, when you have this software, one other thing you really need is the monitoring speakers, like the Bheringer monitoring speakers, which give you clarity, and you can actually have a feel of everything else, because the normal speakers will not actually give you the quality. It might sound different when you put it in the car, it might sound different when you put it in your radio, when you play it in your CD player or somewhere else, it might sound a bit different, even on your phone. But if you use the monitoring speakers, it gives you the clarity that you actually need to play around with. Now for the 3-band compressor, you'll work on balancing the bass, the mid, and the highs. All right, those ones are key because they're what I normally just call mainly the energy um, of the wave sounds or the sound that you have. That's what balances the energy and gives it that kind of like uniformity in terms of how it's going to sound. Now the other thing that you'd look at is the stereo. Okay, now the stereo spread is now how scattered your sound is going to be. Like, you remember when you're making the instrumental, there's some sounds that you actually put them you pan them on the right, some sounds you pan them on the left. All right, and then even with the vocals, on the chorus, probably you have you excited the vocals on the chorus, or you actually did a panning on some vocals, some sounds to be on the left, some sounds to be on the right. Again, you don't need too much stereo because it's some sound that you're gonna lose, like the vocals, because the vocals are mainly recorded on the mono. They sound better on the mono level as opposed to stereo. But then when you're working on the chorus or you're working on the hook, there are some vocals that you put on the right, some you put on the left, and sometimes if you're doing hip hop or rap, we do have ad libs, okay, which do appear either on the left or the right side, and we also have the backups on the verses, which of course you might want to pan a little bit of those. So during the mixing, the sounds that you actually pan to the left and the right, the stereo on the mastering, the stereo beat is going to dictate how much of a spread in effect this one will be. So again, you might just need a little bit of that, is not too much of it, because again, if you do too much of it, you're going to lose some sounds on that. Now the last one is not a must, but it's just there. I think Audio Clean Lab has it. It's called the sound cloner, which actually gets one of the specific sounds and then it amalgamates on top of all the sound. What happens is that I use that to kill the irrelevant picks that might have been there. All right, just smoothen it a little bit, especially on the vocals, but I just use about 5% of what is been termed out as Loudness Phase Linear. So for the Loudness Phase Linear, I use that just as a polish on top of what I have. Okay, so just kill it a little bit, and then I use just 5% of it, so that the abnormal peaks that are there, the highs and the scratchy lows, highs and stuff that comes in, kind of like just gets numbed down a little bit, and then it's kind of like takes that linear perspective on that. So that's what I call the phasing. Now my mastering does not deal so much with the equalizers, because I use the equalizer during the mixing phase, because I'd like to equalize things differently, like the vocals. That's where I put if it's a radio effect, if I want to kill the bass and stuff, I do that on the mixing. So those are the three main areas that I look at when it comes to mastering. Now sometimes during the mastering session, you might realize that when you deal with mid, highs and lows, the dynamics, that's the three band compressor, you realize that there's some, maybe the lows, that is the bass, is kind of like very, very high, or it's just too much, or you find that the highs are just peaking too much, and it won't balance off. Because for it to balance off, we have some lights that actually shows you how much of the bass is there, how much of the mids are there, and how much of the highs are there. Then that will take you back now to your session again, where you'll have to go back and do another remix the track, reduce what picks the most, and what's kind of like too obvious out there that is not working on the polish. All right, but if you've mastered the concept, then you rarely go back there. That's why I was saying initially that every sound you're recording, right from capturing of the vocals to the building of the instrumentals and stuff, it must sound at least the way you'd want it to sound on the final piece of work. So once that is done, then the mastering is just just touching here and there, just adding a bit of the brilliance, just adding a bit of the stereo effect, and the bass, the highs and lows, to balance them a little bit and see how it works. And you get the concept and you actually feel it on your monitor speakers. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I hope to see you again next time.